Good morning, Senate Agriculture back in business. It's 11 a.m. We're going to spend some time with the Farmers Watershed Alliance, and I believe that Scott Magnum from the board chair of Farmers Watershed Alliance is going to lead us off.
Yeah, I can.
Or if you'd like, come on up into the chair, and the time is yours, and however you guys want to spend it is fine with us. We have a couple members just for the audience who may be watching that have to attend another meeting, so they won't cause a disruption when they leave. They're pretty calm. And so
that's a matter of opinion.
So anyway, so if anybody sees that, not to be alarmed. But Scott, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, or nice to meet everyone here. I think one of the reasons that the three of us wanted to come down was to meet the new committee. We knew there was some turnover. We wanted to maybe give you guys information, learn about what you guys are about, and maybe start a relationship so we can have that communication back and forth as policy moves forward. FWA has been part of assisting with legislation, I guess, and water quality issues, and a voice for farmers up in our area, northwest part of Vermont, but we also have relationships with the other water quality groups. So we're pretty in tune with water quality issues and agriculture in Vermont. We helped form we had a voice in the original RAPs. We know that's under review from the recent EPA letter and how that's going to be handled moving forward.
Tell us what RAP is.
Revised agricultural practices,
which
are mainly field practices. We're not sure if those would be influenced by the shift, because that's the CAFO permitting is mainly on the farmstead. So we're trying to get more educated on what the impact of that letter and what that process is going to be, and we feel you should also be educated on that. We're not sure how the Senate is going to fit into that process. So we might want some more information on that. Like, is this an avenue for farmers to have a voice, or is that going to be more, is our voice going to be with like the agencies that have the stake in the process? I was also part of and got feedback from the FWA on Act 59, and we're waiting to see how that shakes out in the future. And we had some stake, I guess, and I was on a working group with that, if farmers should be included, not included. I'm not sure where that eventually landed. So we're looking for some updated information there. So looking for updates, information, and to give our feedback.
Yep. Well, I can tell you, you're absolutely positively correct. It's a new board. I think we have been very good at bringing groups in so that we can understand. Senator Collmore is the only one that's been held over. Some of us have ag background, some of us don't, but it doesn't mean that, that we're not able to hear, listen, learn, and we've been doing a good job of that. So there's nothing that's ever too small that if it is going to affect you in any way, we want to know about it. We don't assume that we know. Don't be afraid to tell us. We're here to listen. We're here to learn, and I think we'll do a very good job of that. We have made a commitment to ourselves that we're not a political group. We are an ag group, and we are going to do our best of all the time to respond to what is best for people who are putting their hands in the dirt and getting them dirty. So that's who we are. I hope that has been what the past boards have been. I would tend to believe that it has been. So we have no radical ideologue that we want to bring forth. We're here to support. I can just tell you the other day we had a group in, and probably in the history of my beliefs that I probably didn't agree with a lot of what they, would be, but at the end of the day, they're under our purview, and they're in here asking us to assist them, and that's what we do. we wanna be that group to not make policy that makes it troubling for you, but to help you move forward. So what else? What else would you want to tell us? What would we want to know about you folks? Anybody else want to jump in?
Our FWA boards.
Just introduce yourself if you would.
Sorry, I'm Larry Jarvis, from Enosburg, Vermont. I'm the vice chair of FWA.
And I'm sorry, because people at home, they can't see you, so if you can switch seats or that'd be great. Because we want to see your face.
Good morning, everyone. Senators, I'm glad to have the time to sit here with y'all. I'm Larry Jarvis from Enosburg. I'm a vice chair at FWA. I'm a dairy farmer. We fall into the LFO category. Several family members in our farms in our neighborhood. I serve on Enosburg Select Board. Have been for over 15 years. So I've had problems like you guys have coming in front of me there all the time too. So but as far as the FWA, our board is made up of not just farmers, but we've got different types of ag leaders, salespersons on our board, so it's a diverse group here. And
So tell us what you do.
as FWA,
Yes.
I mean, that's probably more of Scott to answer being the chair, but we used to be more hands-on. The money used to funnel down in through us and we'd help the farmers out. But now we're more of a support to the farmers. The farmers in our area, I think there's a trust with them with, different rules or practices that may be coming aboard. It's easier for them to talk to our board members than to the regulatory arm.
Right.
And it's a lot of trust there. I mean,
So you're helping them with like water runoff, water quality of all different things, and just
so if you want to, we have programs like grassy waterways. Have had, yeah. We're now more into the support where we're getting into like precision farming methods and stuff. Scott just had a class, a workshop yesterday to try to help farmers adopt different means of doing their business at a more economical and environmentally friendly way. Such a thing as putting fertilizer on and having equipment record how much fertilizer is being put on, and you're doing it at the right rates and stuff. And the manures are the same way and stuff too. And having that technology as LFO and the other farms, we have to record all this stuff. And it sounds easy, but it's really not. All our farms are made up of different sizes, and farms like ourselves, being a large farm, there's many little farms all added in together, but you have to have a record for every field, whether it's a 2-acre field or a 300-acre field. So there's a lot of agronomic stuff that you have to put in there. And as Scott kind of mentioned, this A&R taking over the CAFO, and it's kind of puts us on pins and needles because we've had a lot of change with the RAPs, and I think our farms have done leaps and bounds of improvements and adopted a lot of different practices. And I think we've grown with the Department of Ag, implementing, large farm rules and stuff. And now we've got another seems like another regulatory arm coming at us. And, you read the email, and it's kind of sounds like you're going to be under the SFO, MFO, LFO guidelines unless you trigger something to go to A&R. So now you're going to have 2 batches of regulatory people, and you're probably going to have to hire just as many people that the Ag Department has under A&R to oversee all this. And it's, as farmers, we don't know how much crossover, we don't know how simple this is gonna be or difficult, and I feel the language that we're reading is, it's gonna happen. It's not, will it happen? It sounds like it's gonna happen. And so some farms may be regulated under A&R, under CAFO, we don't know. Okay, if you failed this, now you're being regulated under CAFO. Does that mean forever? Or does that mean for 1 year? You know, you go back to this other set of rules. It's kind of confusing. And I know I think it's confusing to them too. They're just on the cusp of trying to get the language. Now EPA is pretty adamant reading that the ag department is not going to be the regulatory arm. And so what does it mean for farmers?
So Larry, up until this point, and I've always said CAFO, but maybe it is CAFO, whatever it is.
Constipated animal
Feeding.
feeding operations.
And it was occasioned by a lawsuit from CLF. That's what started the whole thing going. So, but up until this point, were most of your members dealing more with the Agency of Ag or the Agency of Natural Resources? Because I think you're right. And we don't have any permits right now in the state of Vermont for this CAFO thing, as far as I know. It looks like it could swing, whether you're a large or medium or small farm, to the point where you're going to be dealing more with A&R than you are with the Agency of Ag. But you've had a pretty good relationship with the Ag agency, I think, up until this point.
Well, that's the whole problem. I feel we have now, but it's anything you bring in new, it's hard to adapt to and change your style. And so I feel, you know, we're working pretty good. A lot of the farms are now. For me, I know I get inspected annually, and you know, there's always 2 or 3 people come on, and it's a whole day job, and it's quite intensive, but I'm used to it. I know what to expect and stuff. And now, you know, I don't know what to expect. Is it going to be more stringent? Because I feel that sometimes it's pretty stringent. Take, for example, we're supposed to have so many feet back of a buffer strip to our corn land. And so 2 years ago, when I got inspected, it was right after all these floods that came through. And they always pick a certain land to go check how many feet you have of vegetative grass. And well, these floods had took a part of this bank out that year.
You were under the limit. Yeah.
And it wasn't even a field that was on their list to look at, but they were driving by it. So they wanted to measure it, and it was 2 feet now because the water took 10 feet of the bank.
Right.
So they wanted to write me up for a violation. And I have Tom Ean from ACS that helps do my nutrient management plan.
Yeah.
And he was there on the call, and there was quite a bit of argument back and forth saying, you know, this is, you know, it was beyond my control.
Sure.
Right.
Just happened.
The flooding and stuff. But that's a critique that you get on some of the inspectors, because some of them don't give you that leeway. You know, I hear some other farms have a lot more difficult time than I have. I think our farm, you know, we've always been kind of forward thinking and trying to stay ahead of the curve, but others have had a lot of, you know, conflict with the ag agency. So speaking for myself, I have a pretty good rapport with them.
When was the last time the RAPs were updated? Remember? A couple years?
15. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you know, it's funny, Linda and I were talking earlier, and it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty. Well, not seems like, there is a lot of uncertainty about what's going on in Washington right now.
Right.
People are very, very concerned, nervous about some of the changes that might be happening. But I've always found if you just take a deep breath and you wait a little while, it all seems to settle down, and you kind of get in a position where you can move forward again. So I think we're in a really tough position right now, because we haven't seen, you know, the appointments and the interviews and the hearings are still going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the lawsuit. EPA could, as you say, put things into place that will make it a little bit more difficult, especially for dairy farms, to comply. but it may go the other way too. I don't think we really know yet. So,
But some things that kind of concern are just like, you know, we have to have storage for our manure, so many days of the year. And then now when it gets into the CAFO, is that all of a sudden gonna have to be an extra 100 days?
Yeah.
It may not sound like much, but it means all these farms are gonna have to construct their storages,
those numbers, yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
each farm more.
Yeah.
Because you put liners in, now there's not too many earthen pits anymore, it's all liners, and the liner material itself, you know, goes to six-digit numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And they, you know, they talked about putting covers over some of these, you know, some of the other states have, because, you know, if you're getting, you know, the average rainfall for Vermont is 36 inches, well, we get 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of extra water that gets put in these pits.
Sure.
And if there's some programs to help putting some covers over these, they do have some of these, technology out there.
And what we ran into, sorry, Senator
No, no.
Major, and what we ran into as far as with that, some of our area farms is that they had to get permits to get rid of some of that, because there's so much extra that you normally can get rid of in this amount of time, but if you've got another 12 inches of rain in there that's going into your pit, it's just a lot more, a lot more gallons that you have to get spread out there, and you might not have the days under what they allow you to do it with.
That's
Right,
definitely.
that-
So I know we got some permits for Anson to comply with it, you know, to let these farmers comply with that, and we were able to, because they got reported,
Yeah, yeah.
and so we got the permits and they were good, but yes.
Good under current law, but that's gonna trigger a CAFO permit
Hmm.
moving forward, even going, like, I wonder if can they legally go back to something that was approved that would trigger a CAFO permit moving forward? Cause under the EPA letter, it says they can.
Yeah. So, and that's, you know, there's a lot of gray area there, and I think, you know, I'm sure Julie Moore and all of them are gonna have, they'll probably have some statewide meetings to try to, hopefully it doesn't happen in 1 year, it needs to be a transition period. And to allow us to know and adapt to what's gonna happen. Because, you know, for me, I started becoming an LFO, our farms did in the early 2000s. And I used to do my own nutrient management plan. But then so much more regulation kept coming on and making it so much more difficult that I ended up hiring Tom. And at that time, it was like, for our farmers, like $10,000 a year. Well, now we're over $20,000 a year. So that's real money to basically take records, you know? And it's, you know, you're trying to farm in the economies that we have, is we're no different than anybody else. You know, our prices of our workers, our employees have to keep going up. Truck drivers, well, we're competing with, there's a shortage of truck drivers everywhere. And all of a sudden you're paying over $30 an hour when, you know, just a few years ago it was $16, $18 an hour. The machinery that you have to get worked on, well, the $150 an hour to work on and stuff. So, you know, our cost to operate keeps going up, and now you're throwing something else for record keeping. And I put things on my chopper to get yield information. You know, it helps the farm, but it's a lot to report to these agencies. And, you know, it costs over $25,000 to put that on this chopper, and it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you do when it doesn't work? Because the support isn't there to bring it right back up, and now you're into a notebook and whatever. So it sounds easy, you know, on paper, but it's not always easy. And in Vermont, all farms are different sizes, makeups, different soil types. But, you know, like I said earlier, the leaps and bounds that our farmers have done, you know, just the cover crop, you know, you see a lot of green in these cornfields in the fall where, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you didn't see that. And it's all across the state.
Senator Major had a question.
How many farms are a part of your alliance?
The FWA. Boy.
I'd say we have work to do on like our membership. I think within our board, we have 11 board members, I believe.
Okay.
And there's some service providers within that. So farmers is, I don't know the exact one, 7 or 8 farmers. And then
on the committee.
Yeah, and then our outreach is to really every farm.
To every farm across the state.
Franklin Green Isle,
Okay.
yeah, like this meeting yesterday, you had people from Addison in there, a lot of NRCS agency people there,
All Champlain watershed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty well networked across Vermont.
Okay,
Just we don't have it defined as our membership's not that well defined.
I see.
we do have our annual meeting coming up too.
Yep.
Every year, we try to get our local legislators there.
I was gonna say, can you make sure that we're alerted to that? So,
Yeah,
if we can,
I think Sarah's on her meeting, she can reach out.
okay,
Yeah.
that'd be wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, I can keep going on, but I should probably pass it rolling.
Whatever, this time's yours, and,
Cause I do wanna come back
Before
on some other things
Senator
there.
Major,
but-
Senator Plunkett, before you guys go, any questions you wanna ask before you go?
I think the main thing for us is because we're learning about your alliance is to continue the communication. It sounds like, a very important thing that you're doing in communicating to, your farmers, what we're doing.
Mhm.
You know, and that may not really understand or know, and particularly in a timely manner, because, and I think I speak for, you know, my colleagues, is we want to support the farmers of Vermont and make sure that we can do as much as we can for you. So, obviously, and knowing what your needs are, it probably is crucial as well, at least for me.
Bye.
If I may, I appreciate hearing
Yeah.
from you on your interactions with the Agency of Agriculture. We hear from the Agency of Agriculture, we hear from agencies all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But you're like dealing with it, the things that we're doing or that have been done and will be doing. Hearing about that is crucial for me to understand this. So that's why I appreciate you guys being here. And I don't want to have to cut out in a couple of minutes, but, did you have?
I should
Yeah.
sort mention real quick too, that, you know, we're also supported hugely by UVM Extension, Heather
Mm.
Darby,
She was in
Jeff
yesterday.
Sanders,
Yeah.
and they interact with the farmers, up in our region a lot where, you know, we do cover cropping, but they also try to find out different types of cover crops that may work in our region, may not work, or they do studies on, you know, different type, well, we're talking about precision ag, you know, you're always doing yield with different things, but maybe the digestibility, and if you put, you know, a certain, product on, you know, what's the difference gonna make? So they're huge in our area. Heather's been, you know, I'm sure
We were
met
impressed.
her, and she's probably gonna be on your agenda.
She was in
Yesterday.
Yeah, she was in, yeah, she was in
Okay, so
yesterday.
that's on your mind.
When you
said precision farming, we knew
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah, I knew what
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
She brought, all of those.
Yeah.
yeah,
All of that.
Yes.
Stack of-
All the
of
studies
to
they've been
digest.
doing.
yeah, and we're gonna have a report on that tomorrow.
Yeah. So we've got to go, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So why don't we, switch, seats here and, get you up there, sir? Just tell us who you are.
Oh, yeah. My name is Roland Rainville. I got a dairy farm in Franklin.
Yeah.
We're transitioning the farm to my nephews.
Yeah,
So that's basically what I'm doing now is I've got time to be here.
yeah,
They don't.
yeah,
They're working.
yeah,
I am a member of the watershed, but I'm also in the Franklin Lake Carmel watershed,
yeah,
which is a big issue.
it is,
The only lake in the state of Vermont is in crisis,
yeah,
supposedly.
right,
So, and the only reason why they put it in crisis was because of, they wanted A&R to take it over. So that was the reason to put it in crisis, was what we were told. So I'm gonna talk more about the lake of Lake Carmel.
absolutely, talk,
And,
the floor is yours, sir.
And, you know, the first meetings we went to, there's a Lake Carmel Association that has groups and stuff, and I go to their meetings. And they're saying, well, 85% of the phosphorus going into Lake Carmine was farmer related. So I got up and said, who said that? The state told us that. It wasn't true. But when they said it, everybody around that lake believed it. So now it's all us farmers that are at fault for polluting the lake. And Heather proved that we weren't the cause. There's legacy phosphorus and stuff, but the maps they used to determine that only had ag on it. So how can you determine, they didn't have no camps on it, just a couple roads. So you can't determine something if you're only using a map that says it's all ag. Yeah, on that map, maybe 85% is, but it's not a true map. So you're getting a lot of wrong information that they use. That's you got to start thinking for yourselves when you get information from different people. You know,
And I think that's the thing, Dan, that we're trying to drill in through as well, is because we understand the legacy phosphorus. We understand that. We understand that we've had a lot of waters that are probably some lands with the amount of rain that we've had are starting to flood into that never did before. That would never make it to the tributaries and all that stuff. But we also understand that every little mud pond now has a year-round home on it, and where before that they didn't have. And we also understand, again, in a short amount of time, what the farming community has done to mitigate any extra infiltration of phosphorus making it into the waterways. So, I think that to have accurate information before you make it pass in judgment it's important to us all to make sure we have that.
Well, I'm not. Everybody's going to do their part, but you got to start somewhere. And when they put it in Lake in crisis, okay, that's to get you farmers more money so you can do more projects. As far as I know, not one farmer has received a penny. They just spent $1.5 million on a bubbler that they couldn't keep running. It might have worked if they could have kept it running, but because they couldn't, it was actually doing more harm than good.
Right.
So now they're going to spend $250,000 to take it out, and then now they want to put L in the bottom of the lake. It's supposed to be a $2.8 million project. Now they're spending all this money.
The phosphorus, we learned about that yesterday.
Yeah, to coat it over. I don't like the idea because you don't know the long term. You never will.
That's true. No, you're right.
So.
And who's heading up most of this? Is it A&R?
A&R is supposed to be. They're in control, as far as I understand. But they're saying the farmers are doing the most good for keeping the phosphorus out now, and we're receiving nothing. And every time my nephews fill out grants and stuff to to do this or do that, as soon as they get all the permits, there's no more funding. So, or they'll say, well, if you do this, you can get funding for that. Well, yeah, in 2 years, you need it today, you don't need it tomorrow. It's just a lot of half-truths. We've been lied to so much that it's hard to believe what's going on anymore. There's no question that we have to do better water quality and we have to do all these regulations, but you gotta know what the truth is first. I came down here for a wetland committee meeting, and the person from the state that was giving the committee information, I'm looking at another guy, I said, those numbers aren't right. And he says, no, they're not, because they're only talking about class 1 and class 2. They weren't telling them about class 3 wetlands. So it sounded like we didn't have hardly any wetlands in the state of Vermont, which we do.
Yep.
So you got a state committee listening to a state person thinking the information is all right, and it's not. The committee couldn't understand why they wanted to make the rules stricter when we weren't losing wetlands. You know, and then you got one organization that says, okay, it's a class 3 wetlands and you can clear it, it's pasture and you can clear it, and you clear it, and then the next organization comes in and says, no, you did this that wasn't right, or you did this that, every organization's got a different value to it. I've done multiple things on my farm. We put an agricultural pond in, and I was told 3 years later that it was in violation. I said, why? The person that did it wasn't qualified to determine it. I said, I've worked with that guy for 15 years. He was a state person, but he wasn't qualified to do the determination. So now they're telling me I'm in violation. But we're gonna forgive it because it's our mistake. You know, they gotta have a little more common sense. I can tell you story after story. It's just, they just came after me for 12 years after I cleared a pasture and said, part of it's, we need back. They took 3 acres back because I took the tree stumps out. I don't know how you clear land without taking the tree stumps out, but, and the Army Corps approved it. But a state guy found it 12 years later and looked at his map on his computer and said, where's those trees now? And then it triggered everything else. So the Army Corps guy told me I could do it, but he didn't document it. And of course his mind couldn't remember. Well, he didn't want to get in trouble either. He was almost ready to retire. So, and you can't fight nobody. I talked to every organization in the state and they all said I was in the right. But we don't fight against our own organizations. So I got 3 acres I can't use now because the state says I can't use it. It's class 3, we knew it was when we did it.
Sure.
But they knew I did it. They took pictures of me doing it when I started. And to come after me 12 years later, I spent tens of thousands of dollars clearing it. I was growing up in brush. Your rules have to be, if you're going to have more than one organization giving guidance to the farmers, the rules have to be the same in each one.
Right.
You
They have to-
can't
each
say that it's
organization
legal
has to
this way,
say-
but it's not legal. And you know, my violation was I pulled the tree stumps, which they weren't trees, they were cedar trees. I pushed them off with a dozer. There's no root system. But she said, well, we got a picture where there's trees there. So I got a picture when there was no trees there. You know, we're losing way too many farms. When I started 50 years ago, there was 50 farms in town of Franklin. There's 6 left. And I'm just trying to help my nephews to be able to start up because young farmers can't start up anymore. The cost is too much.
Right.
So we keep losing ag. We're losing ag land all over. We got a solar field going up right now right beside us. Huge. It's gotta be over 20 acres.
Nice flat.
Nice flat, tillable agricultural land right beside the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't blame the farmer. He's getting more renting that to the solar panels than he could ever rent it out because he's retired now too.
Yeah.
And he bought that field for an investment.
But if you tried to put houses there,
Well, he was going to put houses, but he's making more money doing this. And in 20 years, that land's gonna be worth more than it is now. So,
How are you guys finding, this, precision fertilizer and stuff? I mean, is the technology out there so that anybody that wants to be part of that can actually do that?
much more, that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
You're fine from right there, now, or whatever, however you want to do it.
Yeah, so I guess my background is I grew up on a dairy farm. I started doing custom work, which is services to farmers out in their fields, back in '97. And I spread manure for a lot of farms. And as regulation got stricter, farmers had to record rates, and as a custom operator, I had to do that to give them their information back, which was super hard. Like Larry mentioned, trying to do it on paper. Like we were hanging like tags out on fields and trying to get guys to write down the things, and then they'd step on it with their boots, and or one guy wouldn't do it, the other three would, and it was a mess. So I put GPS displays in the tractors. So I had that and taught the operators how to use it. And at that time, we were just recording, like I did a date and a GIS map. And I had a hard time figuring all that out. But eventually I did and formed a relationship with AgMeter Technology and went that direction and became a dealer for them. And now I'm a dealer, but I also have a CWIP grant through the Agency of Ag to provide some training and support to farmers for that GIS record keeping and to help them get started with what I started and tried to figure out to make that transition easy. That's kind of what our workshop yesterday was about. We had 39 people attend to learn more about that process. So we're working with outreach to get more people like myself out there in the field that can pull those records and set up those boundaries and work with those displays to get the electronic record keeping and advance people's technical skills and technology. That's one of the FWA's mission. We're trying to hire a precision ag coordinator or precision ag, what the position's called exactly. But goal is to have a precision ag network. So we're going to take on-farm research, put it on the network and help this person collaborate that data from farmers that already have that technology to put it to better use. It's becoming more available as I think I'm probably the leader in the state and maybe New England on the precision ag piece. But some of the, as it gets more popular, industry is going to jump in, I'm sure.
Are people noticing a difference? Are farmers noticing a difference as far as being able to target the areas that need more or less, or, is it?
I think it's refinement. So it gives you the ability to be a little more refined. So like my farm, for example, we set up a fertilizer spreader and our manure spreader, and you can punch in the exact rate, 3,500 gallons or.
But where are you getting your information from to know that?
Nutrient management planner. So I got help from the conservation district. They helped me with my plan and I got that information and we punched in the exact rate for all those fields, followed it, and our yield results were really good following the plan. Made money on most of our fields, not all of our fields, but now we have the GIS records, so we know where we didn't make money. And now we're pinpointing those.
Didn't make money because of you could actually target the growth, you could actually, record the growth or tonnage.
The yield.
The yield, yeah.
Yep, and we had a full data set, so our software did an analysis.
Yeah.
And we can pretty much go to any point in the field and track profit, loss, high yield, low yield. We can look at different layers of maps to pinpoint a problem. We can go to a soil survey map. We did some regional soil sampling in a field where we broke it into 3 regions, a high, medium, and a low. And we formed those zones through like a multi-year analysis of yield, but we can also do it with NDVI data, which we're working on a project with UVM. So we did a multi-year analysis. It's free imagery. It correlates really well with yield. So we have the management zone, so you can go out and figure out why low is low and why high is high. So in one of my fields, for example, there's a trend towards organic matter being low in our low zone and high in our high zone. So there's more nutrient efficiency with higher organic matter that's creating a higher yield. So we're lowering the fertilizer rate in the low zone because it's there, but it's not
being
available.
Right.
So we cut it, save the cost, better for the environment, put it where it can be used. And I think an NMP is very similar. It is just on a field by field basis, and we just took that and put it into like a variable rate. So take a 30-acre field and break it into 3 10-acre fields where they needed to be. That all makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think it's not widely adopted. That's what we're working on with UVM and my operation and a couple other farmers that we work with. But that's part of our work with the FWA is we want to get that out further.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Heather's on your board, right?
She is?
Yeah. She had some pretty powerful stats, I felt, yesterday, and, you know, I've watched her over the years here, and, Roland mentioned the map that they use on Lake Carmine to kind of put the finger on the farmers and not the cottages or the camps that are there that probably for many years had direct discharge into the lake at some point. I mean, that's what we did once upon a time, and that's where a lot of that got built up. But her data, and she's an expert at it, tells me that the agricultural community has done more than any other sector to try to fix stuff.
yeah, and that's what we're seeing over and over with a lot of
Yeah.
testimony that we're seeing.
So, you know, I think everybody in this committee is gonna be 100% in favor of, especially dairy, but all kinds of other farming too. And not just assume that the farmer is the one that's always making things worse, because I think, and Larry's done a lot, because that, what you're talking about, Scott's not cheap either. You can't go down to Obashan and buy all this technical stuff. You gotta, so he's made investment, to be able to at least quantify what the yield looks like and then make adjustments to bulk fertilizer manure. And it seems to be working, especially with corn. I'm also interested in how we're gonna, see things unfold with the seed manufacturers in the next couple of years. You know, are they gonna actually make non-treated seeds available to, farmers to grow the corn? She mentioned diamite yesterday, which maybe it's a little more effective against the pests that are there, but I think there's some kind of negative pieces to that too. So I don't know where we're headed.
To that point, we were talking neonics, non-neonic seeds and stuff, and we know, you know, we're gonna be regulated when it comes down the road. And that's where Heather and Jeff have just started doing studies on this. It's like the legislation should have waited till, you know, the study's there, because it may or may not be viable for us to use, but what is gonna happen, and we always have our seed dealers will have a field day, you know, Brevant or Pioneer or whatever, and they have different varieties of corn. For a dairy farmer, a brown midrib corn is very digestible and very, you know, the payback to that variety is huge. So my ask to these companies are, you're gonna be regulated with this, what is our portfolio gonna look like? They're not gonna change their whole portfolio for Vermont or New York, because, you know, we're a small drop in the bucket. So we may have, all of a sudden, maybe we have 10 or 12 different varieties of the digestible corn, and it might be one or two. And it may not work on your soil. So that's the concern that we have.
I think they're like, blanket policy is sometimes really easy, and like,
Right.
and in certain cases, we probably don't need neonic treated seed, but in certain cases, we may need neonic seed, and like, there hasn't been much work done to figure out what those scenarios are, and like, and what the impact would be if you do need it in this scenario, or how do you change your management so you don't need it as much? Like, that work hasn't been done. It's in the process, but the process came way too late. The legislation
You
was
might not be
already
using that treated
forward.
seed, but you might have to spray it with something else to do what that treated seed was doing. So you're still putting something on.
And orchards were exempt. I think they still are, so they can spray all day. They didn't fall under it.
Why?
Well, that's a good question.
You know,
Yeah, and the original bills that left here had a different effective date. We had wanted it to go to 2031 before we were under that provision, but it got changed on the floor to take New York State and make it the same. I think there were members of this committee that,
you know, if all the big green states were adopting this,
well, yeah,
then the green companies would look at it. Well,
Sure.
Like Larry said,
Yeah.
we're dropping the bucket.
Right.
They're not gonna change their business because of us.
No.
And I remember being a little boy, and Dad was always putting the insecticide and stuff that, you know, now you're handling it, and it's worse than putting a little bit on a seed that's comes through. Now is that what we're gonna have to do again? And what is the portfolio
right.
they're gonna look like? I'm not interested in putting my hands and insecticide.
Yeah, I can remember dumping it into the buckets, the corn buckets and all that,
Spread it
and,
around, oh,
yeah, they doing that, yeah, absolutely.
I know there's, you know, drone technology that's really coming out, that's, you know, it's gonna be helping the farmers being able to apply pesticides or whatnot, and probably get readings from the corn to tell the health of what the corn is, so it may, you know, you may be able to add or a less amount than what you just put a blanket amount on something, so your environmentally it's gonna be better. But, you know, one concern with the last 2 wet years that we've had up in our area is, you know, the corns need the fungicide. Well, you either put it a pre-plant, or you don't know how well that's gonna do, or you put it as, when it's gonna tassel. Well, you take these big rigs trying to get through the cornfield, that point is not gonna do any corn.
Yeah.
These drones can come in and, you know.
Yeah, right.
And that's one of the studies that I'm talking with Scott about doing is, you know, trying to put some fungicide, a treated side and a non-treated side, because this last year I bought some corn and a variety that I had, and these 2 other farmers had the same variety, and we buy it on dry matter points, so we're testing all of them. But this one, the digestibility was like 4 or 5 points better, and it didn't make sense. Well, he put fungicide on. So now we're like, is there a payback with this fungicide? We don't, who's studying that? You study yield and, you know what your inputs are and stuff, but, you know, try to get something better for the cow. You know, maybe putting a small amount of something else with these precision tools may be the answer.
Yeah, we can track the digestibility through his monitor and map that. So side-by-side comparison would show up on a GIS map, boom, boom, we have those numbers.
I think that's the thing most impressive about being in this committee. I've always been in ag, I've always, always have. But here, Senator Heffernan and I were at a meeting the other night in his district. What was that group?
The young farmers.
Yeah, but we talked with young farmers in this one group and they were there, and just to hear them talk about it, but even looking at the age differences here, and, Roland, I'm sure that when you started all up what's going on right now, that was never even in existence, any of that stuff.
I've done more paperwork the last 5 years than I did my whole 45 years.
And then just going
It's
through
just,
the age groups
you
here.
farm.
Yeah,
You
just
know?
going through the age groups to see what you folks have to do and what you do and what you're willing to do to stay in the business, and, you shake our heads a little bit, and then, to hear you and, the precision, fertilizing, and it's just amazing stuff.
I think that sort of technology is something that the younger people may wanna grab onto and stay on farms, because, who wants to work hard, milk cows or whatever, that's not a lot of fun. But you start getting some of this technology on there, and that's the same sort of thing that they may be doing in Burlington or wherever else. Well, I can do it right here at home and have a business with this. It's great.
Yeah.
So I think it's an avenue for the younger generation to stay, because the average age of farmers keeps going up.
Yeah.
I used to be I'm not in that. No, I'm not above that one. Now I'm above it. And, the farm numbers are dwindling, so who's the next generation? How do you keep them there?
Are you both LFOs?
In a small farm.
Oh, you are small, okay.
I think there's an element of common sense with precision ag and economy of scale too, that you can still farm with common sense, especially at a smaller scale. It's a little easier to keep track of.
Yeah.
You can still do manual calibrations and things, but certainly we get a lot of good information that can impact even people that don't have it.
Yeah.
It helps with the information, like with Larry, he's got X amount of acres, he can put that cost over those acres. Well, if I only get 10% of the acres he's got, I can't justify those costs.
Oh, exactly. It's got to
That's the
scale.
problem the smaller farm gets into.
Right.
We can't afford all that technology.
It's got to scale.
You gotta be able to use what you can use. I agree that technology is all good, but it's a cost.
Sometimes right up here, isn't it?
Well, when it's smaller, you can do that. Larry's got so many fields,
Yeah.
he knows them all, but
Right.
to remember 2 years ago, what did we do there?
Mhm.
It's easier if it's all documented.
even with the information, it's still up here.
Right.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
needs to be applicable.
You know, when you're driving down that field, you know, wow, what a crop, or geez, where the hell did hay go? You know, it's, you know it, but it's not documented.
One of the things I should mention, you know, we've seen in Franklin County get utilized a lot more is the ability to put the manure in the ground. And we do it with drag line and, you know, Scott's got attachments on the back of the spreaders and stuff. And it generally it used to be mostly corn lands that you applied it on, and now there's more and more that are injecting it into the grass grounds.
Yeah.
So it's keeping the nutrients, you know, still stable. And
Right.
at this day and age, like I talked about expense before, you know, that manure, you don't want it running off, because if you have to hire it done, it's like, what, 1 or 2 pennies a gallon, and, you know, you put 10, 12,000 gallons per acre, you start seeing those numbers, and
Yeah.
you want that.
You wanted it in the ground.
But I can go back to the CAFO issue too, like that's where the federal dollars are gonna follow in the barnyards. Probably for bigger manure pits, more water, more wastewater going into those pits, and you gotta move it,
Yeah.
which is an expense and also a risk. It's an environmental risk to have that in a more fluid form at a higher rate. Even though it's less concentrated.
Yeah,
Farmers take the manure, it's a nutrient for the land, and city people look at it as hazardous waste.
yeah.
We don't wanna waste it. We don't want it running down the field. We
Right.
want it to
Right.
stay there.
It's like 97% water now, so like you're hauling that cost of 97% water is fairly inefficient.
Yeah,
And that becomes a huge problem too with this excess water that Scott was talking about. Is, you know, we have to have these catch basins for your bunker runoffs or whatever and stuff. If you have a regular summer and stuff, it's not a big, huge deal. But the last 2 summers, when you get these torrential rains and floods, well, that ends up in your manure pits. So now, that product that's in the manure pits isn't the same as what you have on the paper that says, okay, you put this many gallons on to get this many nutrients. Now it's watered down.
right,
And so now, how do you chase that?
right.
We're always
Now
a
you're not
year
putting-
behind in the information.
Yeah.
I do have some rough data just from billing, so we do custom manure hauling and what it costs like a small farm 10 years ago versus now. Some of it's just inflation of rate, but a lot of it is they've done barnyard projects and increased rainfall, and those costs have just doubled, and it's become way harder to manage out in the field because you're more trucking, more hauling, so it used to be a 1-day job, now it's a 3-day job. So it's changed a lot, either by policy and weather together.
What else? What else you want to tell us? We got a few minutes left. Anything else you'd like to tell us? I guess we lost her.
Dan is there.
Oh, Dan.
Dan, are you still on?
Dan, Larrabee?
Yes, I'm right here.
Ethan, sorry, we didn't know you were up there. Apologize. We've got about 6 minutes. What would you like to tell us, sir?
Well, I'll make it kind of short then. We have a
Just
camp.
identify yourself, Dan, just for anybody. I know we have, but just go ahead and say your name.
Dan Larrabee, live in Franklin. I'm a landowner, and we also have a camp on the Lake Carmi.
Yep.
I just want to share that I felt the lake was cleaner than ever last year because of all the rain.
Mhm.
It was able to keep moving. And I noticed when you do get blue-green algae in the lake, it's always the shallowest part of the water. In my thought, instead of putting a chemical in the water, why wouldn't you maybe, I use the word clean out, but maybe, I guess the word dredge, that's probably a pretty bad word today, but why not make it deeper?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Not environmental people.
Yeah.
Pay them for the phosphorus.
Yep.
You know, when a farmer's got a pond that's dirty, we drain it and clean it,
Yeah,
and then it's clean again.
right.
They call it Lake Carmi, but it's a pond. It was called Franklin Pond first, and all it's doing is trying to fill in. So, and when you bring up dredging at any kind of meeting,
Oh,
they throw you right out.
Oh, yeah.
Dan, you still on?
Yes, I am.
Can you talk about your camp and the septics in the areas?
Yes, I can. I mean, fortunately, ours, we redid ours way back before the rules changed. So we do have it. I'm not saying a state of the art septic, but it does not go in the water. Um, Before we did it, there was pipe heading toward the water, and we took care of that. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's way better than it was. Um, I will say there's 300 and I think 60 camps around that lake. Um, and I don't know if everybody has a perfect situation there. And I don't think none of them are perfect, but maybe some are still heading the wrong direction. If that makes any sense. People use their camps a lot more than they ever did. It used to be owned by Canadians. They used to come down on weekends, their vacation. Um, we stay there a couple months out of the summer, and a lot of people stay there most of the summer. So things have changed. It's not just the dairy farmer, and the farmer's done a way better job, as Rowan, Larry, and Scott had said. They're doing a super job around there, but the camps do get used more, way more.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm in real estate and, I own a couple of real estate companies and I understand that very, very well. We see that, as I said a little bit earlier, it seems like every mud pond that is out there now has got year-round homes and, where they never had them before. So, yeah,
no,
so,
We have the only lake in crisis in the state of Vermont. Try to buy a camp on Lake Carmine.
mhm.
As soon as it goes up, it's
Oh,
sold.
we know that.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah.
So if it's that bad,
Could we see if Wayne Fisk, if he's been watching,
Wayne, are you on, Wayne?
he's got a little slaughterhouse or raised meat that he's on, it'd be good to get his perspective.
Wayne? Anybody else on? Sarah, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Sarah, we got a few minutes left. What would you like to add? And just identify yourself, please.
Sarah Gratz. I actually didn't have anything to share. I just wanted to listen in today and thank you all for meeting with us. And it looks like Wayne is on now, so.
Yep, Wayne, what would you
Yep.
like to say, sir? Just identify yourself and.
Wayne Fisk. I'm in Franklin. We have a beef operation we're running now. We're at the start of Rock River, which is the highest phosphorus river in Vermont. We've done a lot of practices on our farm with the state to get some records and stuff to see what was going on. I think a lot of it is, as I watch it, river bank erosion, which is coming off the sides, that is going into Lake Champlain. And the farmers are getting charged for that. That is their fault. Kent Henderson from the other watershed in Swanton, he's been doing a lot of testing of the water, and I don't know all the results are, but it's coming back to where it's not the farmers that's doing it. It's the streams and the riverbank that is polluting it. The pond that we have, they call it Bowes Pond. And I say we're at the start of it. And years ago, the town lowered the culvert that goes across the road, the Franklin Highgate Road, and it lowered the water level in the pond, which I think when it rains hard, it disturbs a lot of soil in the pond, and that all gets flushed down through the river and into Lake Champlain. There's going to be some noticeability from the state or from different agencies to be taking care of this, or at least looking at it, and not be charging the farmers for the pollution of the lake.
Wayne, did you want to talk about your difficulty or any difficulty with slaughtering, meat slaughter?
With what?
Slaughterhouses?
Well, yeah, we can. We're in the beef business. Kind of forgot about that. We're having trouble with our slaughterhouses as far as taking some animals in. We're scheduled a year ahead of time to get them slaughtered, by the month. And if you don't get them scheduled a year ahead, you don't get in. It's a small slaughterhouse, and they've done some grants, I believe, to expand, but it doesn't seem to be coming their way. And that's all over the whole state. And there's another thing that's coming up, change the subject a little bit, is the compost for down our dead animals on these farms that we know they have them. We had them. We had a dairy farm here for quite a few years. And what do you do with them? We put a compost pad in. It takes care of them somewhat between the femurs and their skulls. It doesn't break that down. You still have the bones to take care of. It makes good fertilizer for the land, but you see, you're dealing with bones too. There's going to be something as a place where we can take these animals and get them heated up and taken care of. A lot of these big farms, which is they're getting bigger, they've got to have some sort of a source to take these animals and have them taken care of. It's going to be a black eye down the road here, and it's going to be coming soon, that they're going to be inspected, and they're going to see some dead carcasses around the farm, which it's not going to be good for them and for their inspections. Let you guys give a heads up that it's going to be something that's going to be put in place from the state to take care of this.
Yeah, what he's talking about, we used to have, Ellenberg used to take mortalities way back in the day, and it was pretty convenient. And they shut down for a small period of time until we went to compost, and then they came back online, and they shut down forever. I don't know, probably 8-10 years ago. So we all have to have our compost piles, and it's quite intensive. You got to use the right products. You're supposed to turn in all the time. We do add some wood chips in there and stuff, and it's like Wayne said, it makes a good fertilizer, but you always have some bones left in there. And ours is on the edge of a manure pit, so it drains right in the manure pit. I'm sure there's a lot of other places that I'm sure a lot of other farms are now set up like that.
Yeah. Well, I think we've reached the end of our time. I want to thank you, all of you, for coming in. I hope you've learned that we're a committee that will listen and we'll act. We're here. If there's anything that's going on, we need to know about it. What we don't know about, can't help. So, again, we're a new committee. We have the wisdom of Senator Collmore here, which helps a lot. And but we're not. It's not like we don't understand what the troubles that you are facing. But again, it's nice to have you come in and listen to you. And I think that we're more than sympathetic. I think that we can be of resource to you. And as I said, we're an ag committee. We're not a political committee. We're here to help to make your lives easier. And if you want to relay that to everybody that you talk with, that would be helpful as well. And if anybody's got anything that they want to get in front of us, well, they can get a hold of Linda. And we can get them in here. We're aware of the changes of what ANR is looking at with the Agency of Ag. We're on top of that. In fact, a meeting with a gentleman here, 5 minutes ago, to go have some of that conversation. So, but anyways, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you folks, and we have an open door policy.
I appreciate that, because I know we all
Thank you.
use Senator Bobby Starr,
Yeah.
recently we'd like to be able to continue that relationship.
That relationship is here.